Under No Pretext. Prelude. This paper is dedicated solely to firearms. I intend to discuss the history of firearms culture, where we're at currently, and more. This is not an academic paper nor a manifesto. It's my voice. You may agree or disagree with what I say here, but what is said here cannot be dismissed. I hope you find this interesting, and as always, enjoy. 1. Taboo. Firearms today are reductively considered a hobby, a fad, and to some, an obsession. It's generally not socially acceptable in the broader global sphere to have an interest in firearms. This is not a natural evolution of human thought as technology increases. No, it's a deliberate psychological process brought on by anti-gun organizations and technocratic institutions. The very idea that guns are bad and uncivilized comes from the history of those in power seeking to weaken the average person. There's no legitimate reason for firearms to be a taboo subject, but we've been led to believe that guns are the primary source of conflict and violence. 2. Rights of man. The right to own firearms has its roots in the same era as the other rights we regard as natural or basic rights. The right to speak freely, the right to assemble, the right to alter unjust government, all came at the same time as the right to bear arms. These rights were conceived as interdependent, and any attempt to frustrate one would frustrate all. Figures such as Locke, Montesquieu, and Beccaria all argued, Montesquieu explicitly, that men should be able to defend themselves against threats which included tyrannical government. Historically, the right to bear arms was viewed as just as important as the other rights. This only changed when the public was convinced that guns were tools for criminals, and that certain types of firearms had no place in civilized society. Moral panic and media sensationalism propagated this narrative, paired with anti-gun NGOs and technically truthful but inflated numbers. This led to legislation such as the 1934 National Firearms Act, the fast passing of the 1996 National Firearms Agreement, and the Firearms Acts of 1988 and 1997. All of these were caused by either organized crime, terrorism, or mental illness. The guns weren't the issue, it was the people who committed the atrocities, and yet guns were targeted because they're an easier scapegoat. It's morally difficult for some people, especially ones in power, to put dangerously mentally ill people in mental institutions and criminals in prison. 3. Gay rebellion and black power. One major question I always ask anti-gun people is how will marginalized communities defend themselves? How will they respond and protect themselves from hate crimes and terror attacks? The solution is clear: armed self-defense. But because guns are unsafe to anti-gunners, they can't fathom the idea that guns are an essential tool for ensuring liberty and justice for all. The Second Amendment isn't for one specific group, it's for all. Putting restrictions on guns limits the ability of marginalized people to defend their communities. Also, the origins of a lot of gun control laws are explicitly racist. Many of the first gun control laws were specifically aimed at barring black Americans from owning guns. California's praised gun control apparatus is rooted in anti-black racism. I'm serious. Look up the Mulford Act of 1967. The Black Panther Party were defending their communities and patrolling where there was police presence. California's politicians didn't like this much, so they drafted the Mulford Act. The Black Panthers, in turn, utilized their right to openly carry loaded firearms by protesting and walking around the California state capitol with said loaded firearms. This is completely impossible nowadays because anti-gun groups have stripped that right away from us. As for gays and the rest of the LGBT, which I am part of, guns again are the solution that remains clear as day. Omar Mateen wouldn't have been able to kill 49 of us if one or more people there had a firearm. We would have been able to better protect our communities in places like Stonewall in New York if we had the ability to defend ourselves. The LGBT community needs to embrace firearms, not for cultural purposes or aesthetics, but for personal protection of self and others. I'm happy to see that more come into firearms, but there's still a massive stigma in the community. Protesting and boycotting won't do anything to stop the attacks on us. When push comes to shove, we need to be alert and ready no matter what. 4. Summary. I wanted to write this paper to make the case that firearms are not a threat to society, they're an essential tool. They aren't a cultural icon by themselves, though they can be. They're instead a key element in the preservation of natural rights. The idea that guns are inherently uncivilized comes from technocrats seeking to keep their own power and anti-gun NGOs looking to trade liberty for safety and then getting neither. We need to stop saying, it's the guns, every time a mass shooting happens. It's not the guns, it's the people. Politically motivated attacks won't stop just because guns are banned. Mental illness related attacks won't stop just because guns are banned. The very simple truth is that guns are an essential right, not a privilege. Bad actors don't represent the majority, so we shouldn't let said bad actors dictate what happens to gun rights. We need to fight the disarmament regime at every step, lest we give the state more power to trample on our other basic liberties with impunity.